Hello, Suzanne here with Motivated by Nature, and I have some exciting news for the new sponsor for the June online Wild About Nature Challenge. Stan and Kelty Masters of Back to Nature Apparel are going to be giving the winner of the June 2021 online challenge a pair of their wonderful leggings that show their incredible photography. So the winner will receive a pair of leggings of their choosing from Stan and Kelty Masters. Stan and Kelty were born in Alberta, and they currently live in Old Alberta, Canada. They have always had a love of nature, but it wasn't until adversity struck both of them that they realized how healing nature totally is and how much it was important for them to protect it. As wildlife photographers, they have a passion to inspire and educate people to reconnect with nature through their lens. Their latest creation is their Canadian-made wearable works of art, which features their wonderful photography. Their vision of finding better solutions to support communities and protect nature has led them to supporting various wildlife rehabilitation programs. They do this with their proceeds, and they believe that every little bit makes a difference. I caught up with Stan and Kelty to do a quick interview with them to give you a little bit of an idea of their journey and why they are so passionate about nature. All right, so we are here with Stan and Kelty Masters. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you here and get a little behind the scenes story. But before we do that, what I'd like to do is do a quick land acknowledgement, in that we live, work, and play in the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, the Métis Region 3, and all people who call the area of Treaty 7 their home. And so it's just really important for us to acknowledge the caretakers of the land from the past, as well as those of the present and those that will be caretaking the land going forward. And I feel that Stan and Kelty are very passionate about land management, just like myself. So thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
So I just want to dive into things. So you've always said that you've had a real love for nature, and I'm just wondering when this love of nature started for the two of you.
Will you go first?
For me, it was when I was around probably about 5. I've always loved playing, and I loved being outside. It didn't matter if it was winter, summer, or fall. It didn't matter to me. I loved just being outside playing and just being there. Yeah.
Awesome. And how about you, Kelty?
Well, for me, it would have been at a young age as well. I come from a very alcoholic, abusive family. A lot of loud words were spoken. And so I often fled outside just to be in quiet and be away from all that. And with that, I found myself often absorbed into, watching the spiders and the ladybugs and stuff. And so I really became fascinated with nature. And then as I got older, I got involved in guiding. So I did a lot of adventures through the guiding program, as well as becoming a leader. So that was kind of the start of it for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I grew up in a very small farming community called Miami, Manitoba, and it was a village basically of 300 people. And at the time, I didn't appreciate the fact that I was growing up on the farm and all the lessons that I was learning. But now I am just so grateful for having that time and for cultivating that love of the land and of nature. So it's great for it to be instilled at an early age. And I'm sorry that you had that kind of upbringing, Kelty, but I'm grateful that nature was such a solace for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so beyond that adversity you had at home, I think you've both dealt with other adversities, and I'm just wondering if you'd be willing to kind of speak to those adversities that make you connect with nature more.
Well, for me, it's my PTSD that I just discovered, what was that, about 3 years ago, 3 years ago? And then how much really nature is important, because when you're in nature, all time stands still. There's nothing goes on. You're out there, it's just nature. So all the issues, problems just dissolve away, even if it's for an hour or 10 minutes or a day. It's just nice because it just dissolves away, and you have that another world that you can escape into and just relax and not worry about all the issues you're dealing with. So that's where nature is so important for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And for me, a number of years ago, I lost my first husband to suicide, unfortunately. And it was after an accident that had left him handicapped. And at the time, it's something when it happens to you, you just have no way of handling and coping with it. And for myself, I got to the point where I couldn't come home during the day. I'd be gone all day. And by the time the kids got back from school, I'd make myself come home again. And just because I felt so much loss at being in the house. And my body got to a point where after 5 months, it just couldn't cope with that anymore. And it shut down, and I ended up being bedridden for 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks, you really look at things differently. And as I got stronger, then I started going for walks in the park across the street. And it was there that I really learned that, this was my place to escape to, my place where I could go where there was no questions asked, no decisions needed to be made. I didn't have to be accountable to anyone. And it was just a place where I could really become aligned with myself. And there is where I grew and found the strength that I knew I could survive. And I did. And from that point, that was a real escalation of connecting with nature. And going forward, that's something that I continue to do and still find a lot of sanctuary being in nature. That's a place where I can go to find strength and reconnect.
That's amazing. And I'm really sorry for your loss. That's tragic and difficult to get through. And it's something that we always carry with us, right? But you are right in the fact that when you can get out into nature, just like you said as well, Stan, like you just go out there and you just be present, and time can kind of stand still when you become really present and focus on all the beauty that's around you. And they've done a lot of research on studies on how nature helps through the grieving process, because especially going to a forest that's regenerating after a fire, to see that new growth and birth happening, and just to know that those trees existed before we came here, and they're going to exist long after we leave, right? So if we do our job right.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing. That's great. Can you just touch on maybe a few of the other ways that nature helps you? So it helps you to be more present and stuff. Are there different things that you do out in nature that you find it brings you that peace and calm?
Well, you talk about losing time when nature, for us, doing wildlife photography, it's something that at first when we started doing it, we thought it was all about getting that fantastic shot, which is what everybody wants. But to get that fantastic shot, you really got to learn to understand nature and wildlife, especially. You got to understand where they are, when they come out to eat, what their habitat is like. And in doing that, it really opened up our eyes to a whole lot more than what we would see normally. And there's been times where we've been out in nature and, you're photographing one thing, like in particular, we were photographing wild horses, and all of a sudden I heard the bugle from an elk, a call, and I looked, and way up above the wild horses up on a ridge was a big, massive bull elk coming out, and he had a harem of about 8 females leading behind him. And I still get goosebumps. And, it was just such an amazing moment. And so, like I said, you lose that sense of time, and you're just lost in that moment. And for me, that was, that's one really moment that stands out, that always will, because it wasn't something I was expecting. And nature's full of lots of surprises.
Absolutely.
Nature is all about learning. When you're out there, you're studying. Like we will take neighborhood walks, and we watch the buds coming out on the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And everything's learning, like watching a moose or watching a bee or something. What is their role in nature, and what's their play, and how everything fits together. And it's just really the education and the learning is the magic thing about nature, is just being out there and learning. It's better than books. Living the National Geographic dream.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think you touched on so many things there. There was a study done about people who photograph wildlife and plants, and it showed that it really helped with their overall health and well-being, because they learn to master a new skill and they learn new patience. And when COVID actually first hit, I heard about this technique of where you get down beneath a flower or a tree and do a perspective of looking up into the sky, and it totally changes the picture. And I went out and I lost hours in taking all these different pictures because I got so engrossed into what I was doing. And that kind of sounds, like what happens for you. It's almost kind of like a meditative trance, right? When you're doing it.
It's like you go through your camera and out the other side, and then you kind of become that with that animal.
Yeah.
And just really observe what he is doing, or what your subject is doing. Flower, plant, mountain. You just transform into a whole nother realm or world.
Awesome. Now you guys have done a lot of photographs of amazing wildlife and flora and fauna. I'm just wondering if there's one instance that stands out the most for you. Like Kelty, you mentioned that elk at the top. Was that the most outstanding for you, or is it really hard to pick just one that really?
You said it right. It's hard to pick. I normally tell everybody whatever is in front of my lens is what I love that moment, and that's true. But one that does stand out, and it's a very thin line, and that's when we had that little chestnut back chickadee. You think when you're in the middle of a forest and there could be a trillion spots where he could have landed, 3 of them landed in our yard, and we spent 4 or 5 months with him. And then we really become bonded, because the deer would come to eat the sunflower seeds out on the ground, which the chestnut, he would only eat off the ground. So I had to make sure that I fed him 3 times a day. So I was chasing foxes, I was chasing deer, I was chasing squirrels. And I'm sure if we had neighbors, they would have thought I was a little bit crazy. But it was interesting to watch how they did things totally different from our 3 chickadees. So that's probably one of my favorute moments.
Yeah,
having a spirit bear almost step on my foot's another. And then
Almost step on your foot?
Almost. Within about that far.
Yeah.
Oh.
But I have a lot of incidents where animals come right up to me and people say, "Aren't you afraid?" Well, if you are afraid, they feel you're afraid. And if you're calm and not afraid, they pick up on that energy. And I don't know, there's just something, I don't recommend everybody do it, but something that happens when you're there and you can't do nothing about it, but just live in that moment.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great advice. Great advice.
And for me, another moment that I will always remember, and again, it was a totally unexpected thing that happened, is that every spring when we lived in the country, we could hear the arrival of the sandhill cranes. You hear the calling. The male will come in first, and then he will call, and it sounds like almost like a prehistoric rattle sound. And usually then the female will come within a day, but he will keep calling her for the whole day until she comes. And so we knew that they were coming. And so we once we heard her call, we knew that they were there. So then we sought out where they were at, and we went to a place where we had seen them previously the year before, and sure enough, they were there. And they were at the very back of this bog, and it was early spring, and so the ground was still frozen. And so we wanted to get close enough to them, but of course we don't always get close enough to scare them away. We just want to get close enough. And so on this bog, we basically would take a few steps, and if they looked at us, we just stopped and we waited, and then they would go about feeding again, and we'd take a few more steps. And so anyhow, we were down there for about an hour with them, and then all of a sudden it's like they were totally oblivious to us. And then one of them, the male, he just started flapping his wings and jumping up and down in the air, and he actually did his ritual mating dance right in front of us. And I had never seen that in my life, and I didn't even know what it was, but I knew it had to have been a ritual, because you could tell he was going through the motions, and it was just amazing. It was so heartwarming to see this unfolding in front of us. And so, yeah, they did their mating dance in front of us. And then after that, they did a little bit more feeding. And then the two of them started their rattling, honking noise, and they flew off together. And it was just like, we looked at each other, it's like, wow, did you just see that? Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
It's almost like you needed to pinch yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
We had to go, wow, we didn't even film it or hardly even take any pictures. You're just kind of like frozen in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Walking.
it's locked up here.
It is. Yep. Some of those memories certainly are just that.
Yeah.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. Well, you've taken so many beautiful outdoor photographs, and you've kind of done a pivot with your business in taking and putting that art onto clothing and accessories. And I'm just wondering if you can walk us through that. Was that because of COVID happening, or were you doing this prior to COVID even happening?
Well, it kind of backs up to when we first started really getting into photography, and how that started is that it was our anniversary, and Stan told me he was going to buy me fur for anniversary. And I thought, well, I don't usually wear fur, but I guess if you're buying it, I'm going to. And then he handed me tickets to Churchill to go and see the polar bears. That was on my bucket list. And so going there, Stan decided that we needed a new camera, because he actually wasn't even into photography at the time, but he says, if I'm going to take a picture, I'm going to make sure I get their retina. So we went and bought a new camera, and a couple weeks later,
we had to go buy a bigger one because the one we had wasn't big enough for me.
he wanted to see the retina. So I kept his camera. So anyhow, we went to the Churchill, and we did the Churchill trip, and going up there and seeing the polar bears. This was in October, and I mean, they're big and they're huge, but really they're starving, because for anybody that understands polar bears, they're going through a walking hibernation the whole summer. They're moving around, but they're not eating because there's no seals to eat at that point.
No ice.
Yeah, no ice. And so anyhow, it really opened up our eyes to just how effective the environment is on their ability to survive. And so we thought, you know what, we can all make a difference, and let's, maybe do something that will help with making a difference in doing that. And so with that, we then decided to give back to nature. And so we started with our pictures and our cards and stuff like that. And we were helping with proceeds going to them. And we thought, you know what, for us to be able to really make a difference, we need to find a new medium. So I spent about a year researching, looking for somebody different, and tried different companies. And then I finally found this Canadian company that helps us take our images, and they manufacture them onto our apparel. And so, which we call our unique wearable works of art. And it's been phenomenal. Prior to COVID, we were actually in 35 stores across Canada, and we were just starting to take off. It was really starting to grow. But then when COVID hit, a lot of our stores were tourism related, because that's what tourists come to see is our beautiful wildlife. And so we lost all those accounts. And so we knew we had to do a pivot. And so with that, we've pivoted now into retail. And so through our online stores, basically, a lot of our sales are done, as well as through fundraisers. But that was definitely the pivot of everything for us.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Now, you did mention that you do sponsor a few different organizations, and I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on those organizations that you help to sponsor.
Well, most of the ones we work with deal with orphaned and injured wildlife, because when we get to go out and do deer fostering, we've done owl fostering. So for us to get out and do the hands-on, that's what we really love to do, along with the donations. But yeah, just to see them, how they bring these animals in, care for them, make sure they're put back where they found them as best they can. That's why they always ask for the locations and stuff. And it's just seeing another end of nature, how other people really love it as much as we do and take care of it like that. And we really love to sponsor that, because we want to see that for generations to come.
Absolutely. It goes back to that, I believe it's Richard Louv who said, if you can't name it, you won't love it. If you don't love it, you won't respect it. Right. So it's
absolutely,
it's falling in love with the nature that's around us, so that we do what's necessary to protect it.
Well, and that's our mission, and our goal is we're hoping that by helping people really learn to appreciate and enjoy nature, that they too are, like I said, are going to help look after it. And in that sense, we help create that reciprocal relationship that's so viable to nature surviving.
Yeah, Absolutely. Well, I know that I appreciate all the nature photography you do and how close you get up in some of them. And I know you've got the telephoto lens, but I heard you in one of your talks where you had gone up to see the bears and just your encounters with the bears there and how close the bears came to you. And like you said, as long as you're not scared, they're focused on their stuff and what it is that they're wanting to do. But just how close you got was just amazing to me.
Well, and the nice thing is having guides. The guides are always watching out. They always got your back. They're always keeping you at a safe distance and watching all the time for you. So that way you can just drift off into that la la land. Except sometimes some of us go a little too far.
Yeah, I mean, you would never do that with the grizzlies that we have around our area. I
No.
mean, people have to understand that these bears that we photograph, they're in a national park or they're in a place that's protected, and so they don't view humans as a threat, and therefore it's a totally different element than being, like I said, out in the Rockies.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks for clarifying that.
and the guides, they educate you on, like, don't move your hands fast, don't jump up and down, don't, just everything
Right.
has to be quiet and still, because just the waving of your hand can be a threat to them. So when you want to even go up to your camera, you're going up very slowly, even though you want to go fast. You'll have to watch how fast you're doing things because you don't want to startle them. And it doesn't take much to startle anything. And then when they're startled, that's when they become more aggressive. So they teach you how to be calm, and I'm naturally calm anyway, but that's the biggest thing, is that being calm.
That's interesting, that they are teaching you, right? Like nature has so much to teach us if we just stop, look, and listen, right? And so they are teaching us how to just be calm, be in the flow, be in the zone, right?
So we can coexist. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
What helps is having a cat or a dog in your life. You learn after a while, like they themselves don't like to be photographed or don't like to be touched at certain times. And you have to just learn how to read them, just like you read wildlife. You have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Watch them.
Yeah, you got some animal speak going on there.
Yeah. They speak in a silent language, but they do tell you.
Yeah,
The movement of
absolutely.
their feet and legs and body movement.
Yeah. Well, and in the end, everything's energy, right? Anything that has water in it has energy, and we have an energy field around us. The animals do too, and it's just being respectful of that. So thank you for bringing the awareness of the importance of doing that. And I'm just curious, do you have any closing thoughts at all that you would like to share?
Closing thoughts? No,
Well,
I think we've covered quite a bit.
Yeah, I guess what we'd like to say is that not everybody's able to get out into nature, and we understand that, especially now more than ever. But something that we have really noticed just in the last 6 months is that for us, we lived out on an acreage for a number of years and had wildlife all around us. And basically that's where our business started from, was off our back deck. And due to certain reasons, we end up having to move into town just in last fall. And at the time we were wondering, how are we going to transition this? What's it going to be like for us going from being surrounded by nature to being in town now? And after we got here, and even now, we kind of just marvel at how much of an easier transition it has been than we ever thought possible. And really, the reason why is because we still continue to surround ourselves with nature. We have nature on our pillows, we have nature on our clothing, we have it on our walls. And so it's not always having to go out into nature, it's bringing nature into you. And that's really what's important. People need to know that. It's like you said, just because you can't go out doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. So that's what we're hoping to be able to do, is help people, like I said, reconnect, but maybe in a different way, especially now more than ever.
You know what? I love that. Thank you for bringing that up, because there was a study done on people looking at pictures of nature versus looking at pictures of man-made objects. And they found those that were looking at pictures of nature actually had lower stress levels than those that were looking at man-made objects. So I'm a real proponent of people bringing nature indoors, like you're doing. And I have my plants behind me, I have my wildflowers behind me, and I get to look out onto a beautiful green playground in front of me. And I just find that helps so much when I can't get outside, to have that around. And so thank you for bringing that. And you've got beautiful pictures for people to purchase if they're interested in, and bringing that into their home as well, and having that kind of energy around them. So yeah, thank you for saying that. And yeah, and I just want to thank you so much for all that you both do to raise the awareness, and for supporting what you do, but also for helping to support the June online Wild About Nature Challenge. The winner for June will actually receive a pair of leggings in the style of their choice from you. So really, really excited to have you on board for that, and really excited for the winner of the challenge in June.
Yes, me too. So yeah, we can't wait. We'd love to be able to share some nature with you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Stan and Kelty, and stay safe and be well and get wild.
You too. Thanks again.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.